Hi guys, I'm Richard Winstone, the regulator guy. At the moment, I'm working on my report about Ofgem's conduct during the energy crisis, how they could have managed it better, their failings. It's going to be a review of their powers, and ultimately it will be a recommendation of new regulations and a new mandate for Ofgem to make them perform better going forwards, to make them do the right thing for consumers. So it will summarise how they failed us so far, and then give Parliament recommendations for how to improve what they've done. I mentioned in a video last week about the non-domestic side of the report. So there will be a section in the report discussing Ofgem's regulatory practices in the non-domestic supply side of the industry, so that energy supply to companies, businesses, charities, organisations. Anyone that's not a home is a non-domestic entity. So there's obviously energy being supplied there, and Ofgem have to regulate that. I want to give you a little update as to why I'm including that in the report and what it's going to highlight. It's a very quick update because there's not a lot to talk about, and it's a very short part of the report that's probably one of the primary parts because there's not a lot of regulation. So Ofgem have standards of conduct for businesses, that for energy suppliers, that provide energy to businesses and non-domestic entities, but that's about as far as it goes. So as a business, you can complain about customer services, but you cannot complain about your prices because there's no regulation around prices in businesses. Therefore, as you can imagine, during the crisis, businesses were hit hard. And what Ofgem hadn't considered at the time is that if you ramp up the energy costs for a business, then you will effectively ramp up the cost of the product and services that that business provides. So this has had a knock-on effect and effectively pushed us into the cost of living crisis that we've seen. And we're all aware that businesses ramped up their prices because their energy costs were too high, but there's not been a deep analysis into that. And there's not been an analysis into how that was Ofgem's fault, what they could have done to prevent it. And one of the main things they could have done was to properly regulate the supply of energy to businesses, but they don't. And I want to give you a few examples of how that has impacted many businesses. So all of them, obviously, saw their energy costs go up. But you have to understand that you can't just go on a price comparison site as a business like USwitch and switch immediately. That's not how it works. And you can't talk to the energy supplier directly. I think maybe you can if you're a big enough business, but they don't deal with every little business in the country. There's 5.5 million small businesses in the country. The energy suppliers don't talk to all of them. It's a lot of work. It's too much. So what they do is they have a broker. There are brokers in the business energy supply side of the industry, someone between the supplier and the business that's being supplied. And it's their job to sort out the contracts. And what these brokers do, because they're paid on commission, is they decide the prices. Now, there's no regulation, there's no cap on business energy prices. So some customers were seeing brokers offer prices that were 2, 3, 4, and up to 5 times higher than the wholesale cost was during the crisis. So wholesale cost may have got to like 28, 30p. They were charging up to £1 per kilowatt hour to these businesses for their energy usage, for their electricity usage. And they're motivated to do that because they get a commission, they get a percentage of that. So the energy suppliers were getting huge profits. They're happy the brokers are doing their jobs. And the brokers get bigger profits because they've ripped off the customers. Some brokers were convincing small businesses to lock in for 3 years. So if they locked in for 3 years at prices during the peak of the crisis, even though prices are now a third of what they were during the peak, those businesses are still paying those costs. And what's worse is the government has given up the support for those businesses. There's no money coming in from the government, and there are some businesses that have locked in for 3 years on an energy tariff that is now 5-6 times the current wholesale rate, and there's no regulation to stop it. So that is absolutely fine. I'm working with a charity who they saw their standing charges go up by 4,000%. That's right, not 400%, 4,000%. It went from 40p a day to £20 a day, or it was something like £140 a year, all the way up to over £7,000 per year on standing charges alone before they've even touched a unit of energy. They wrote to the House of Commons about this. They're currently in an argument to try and get this reversed and get some of their money back. And this is a charity. So that's money being donated to them to try and help people, now going to their energy bills. The lack of regulation in the non-domestic space from Ofgem is a huge oversight. And they don't seem to acknowledge the knock-on effect of that. Because while some businesses will ultimately collapse, and that's a loss of jobs, that's bad, there are also businesses that can survive, and what they're doing is just ramping up their prices, giving us a cost of living crisis, and that's also bad. And the only two sets of people that are benefiting from this are the energy suppliers and the energy brokers. There needs to be regulation on this. There needs to be some rules in place, and that is one of the key things this report is highlighting. And we will be putting forward rules that we expect Ofgem to put in place, including a cap, and especially a cap on commission for brokers. Because at the moment they have free reign of the market and can do what they want. And that is not fair to the businesses, which ends up not being fair to you and me and the rest of the consumers of the products and services those businesses provide. So I hope you found that interesting. It's just one of the sections of the report. If you'd like to support the report, the production of this report, please do check out the regulatorguide.co.uk. There's a bar at the top that can take you to the crowdfunder page. It discusses a bit further what the report is producing. I'm going to continue producing these videos over the coming weeks to give you updates as I work on a section and it's fresh in my mind. I'll give you that information so you can see what we're sort of asking for. I'll give you a lot more information on the specific requests than I have done in this video towards the end of the report, once they're written out, hashed out, spoken through with a group of people, and they're ready to sort of be openly discussed. I will give you that information, and together we can go to Parliament, we can have our views heard, and we can ask them to make these changes that will benefit all of us. That's everything from me. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you.